Welcome to the Trail Chasers podcast. I'm your host, Dean Horwitz, and I'm excited to share this journey with you. Each week, we'll be hitting the trails with some of South Africa's most inspiring trail runners, diving into the topics that matter most and uncovering the secrets of this incredible sport. Lace up your trail shoes and join me on this adventure. New episodes every week. Very excited to have this chat today. I actually have to admit that I didn't really know much about SkyRun. I don't think I actually even knew about it until I had Krobler Basson in the studio at the beginning of the season. And he kind of ignited the fire. And I think I spent a good few hours on YouTube after that and watching videos and scrolling through social media and just seeing how incredible the race is. So, and then obviously since then, I've been like, I need to get you on. And I think it's obviously worked out now that that we haven't got it right. So now at least we can get it close to the event. So tell me something, the history of the event, how was it kind of started? And I guess where did you kind of come in?
Yeah, so SkyRun is the oldest mountain ultra in the country. We are busy with our 28th year this year. So it's really been going wrong. And SkyRun is a thing, and it has been a thing before this whole sky running concept started. So the race was initially started by John Michael Tors, who used to live in Allowal North, and he used to traverse the route to the Wartrail Country Club, normally in December, and go hike all the way from Lady Grey to the Wartrail Country Club and have it was either year-end function or party over there, and that was just basically like his pilgrimage. And then he started it as an event. Initially, it was a hike type of aspect, and then it became a run. The very, very first events, you'd start in Lady Grey and run all the way to Tiffindale Ski Resort and then down to Rhodes. That was a year or two. And then the race was starting in Lady Grey and finishing at Tiffindale Ski Resort. But it was around about 87 kilometers. And then he left the country to go do some work abroad. And I'd taken part in one of his races prior. And then when he left, he asked, well, do I want to take over host event and ran an event? And it was very small in those days, nothing made. Yeah, in 2005, I took over the event, and then my partner Mike came a year or two later. He came on board, and we started Pure Adventures, and we've been hosting it since 2007 as Pure Adventures, and I've been involved since 2005. So It's basically the grandfather of all these ultras that you see all over the country at the moment.
What did you kind of change when you came on board in 2005, and what have you kind of changed over, since then, and what have you kind of kept the same?
So initially I kept it on the format, that John Michael had it for the first year or so until Mike got involved. Mike is more business minded. And then we just started to gear the event more, because it has to be commercially viable. In the first couple of years, we weren't making money, or I was actually paying in to host the event, but it was a passion project, you understand? Mm-hmm. But just to make it more commercially viable, we changed the finish line to end at the Wartrail Country Club to make it 100 kilometers. It was just an odd number, 87. That was always advertised as a 100-kilometer event, but it was never actually 100 kilometers. It was always a bit less. So by finishing at the Wartrail Country Club, just logistically for athletes to get there and get back home is much easier. Previously, we had to finish at top of the mountain, and just those passes to get up and down was logistically a nightmare. And, like I said, just to get the event to be 100 kilometers, which was good. So we did that. And then also just with the growth of the sport in South Africa, just the safety measures, the liability aspects and things like that. It's just not no more just like a little unorganized event that happens because of the boom in this type of running. The costs to host the event has gone up tremendously in the last couple of years, just with the amount of marshals we've got to have on the mountains. We at SkyRun, we don't take chances. We've got almost like a full medical checkup for the 100-kilometer athletes at the start of the race. We've got a medical checkup at Ballach to see if they can continue through the night. So, we've got almost 90 volunteers that we've got to get to the event and take care of. So I think when Mike became involved, we just scaled it up and get it up a bit more to just try and make it commercially viable. Not that COVID helped us much, but we get in there.
And I guess it's one of those few races that is, self-supported, self-navigational. How has that evolved? And where is the line between self-navigational, self-supported, but obviously also like health and safety, and making sure you do have those kind of things in place?
So what we mean by self-navigated is we don't mark the route. But in all honesty, Dean, everyone nowadays has got a GPS unit that they're training with.
Yeah.
And as soon as you start marking a route, people are relying on the markers. And when you're in the mountains, you can have such bad viz that you can't even see 5 meters in front of you. You can have hectic winds removing one or two of the markers, and then people are lost. As soon as you start marking these type of routes, it's not practical to have a pre-runner run through the route. And even if you do have a pre-runner run through the route, you have, like we do have often on the SkyRun, you have bad weather conditions, misty conditions, you can't see markers. So for us, it's safer to have athletes empowered themselves and know that they have to self-navigate, they have to have their watches, they have to have the routes downloaded, they have to know how to use it, they have to have spare batteries and power banks in case the watches go down. So for us, to market route is non-negotiable. We could have made this event much more attractive to mass participation by marking the route, but that's not the ethos of the SkyRun. The SkyRun it's remote, it's wilderness, it's wild. You're very far from civilization, and you got to take care of yourself. But saying that, we have on the 100 kilometers, we've got 9 manned checkpoints. So around about 10 kilometers apart, some less, a little bit longer. But every 10 kilometers, you come to a manned checkpoint where you physically scanned in, marked, you checked. We've got medics at those checkpoints. We've got volunteers at the checkpoints. So we basically know where a lot of the guys, we know where you are on the route. And you got a 5K plus minus either going back or forwards, and we've got a good sweeper team on the route. So for us, to put some of the responsibility of staying on course in the athlete's hands and not them just relying on a flag that can get blown away or you can't see, and then there's panic stations because now you don't really know what you're doing. Athletes are prepared for these situations, and because our event also 90% of the athletes go through the night, to be self-navigate is the way to go. And I'm sure a lot of the ultras out there and the mountain runs out there, they might have route markings, but they rely heavily on athletes downloading the route for that specific purpose. So that's the one thing, self-supporting. So when we say self-supporting, is that we do supply some form of support en route. For example, at Ballach, which is 57 k's in, there is a place for the athletes to get a meal. Then at Edge Hill, which is a further 10 k's, there's like something hot to eat, and then on top at the hut after the turn checkpoint, they do get like a hot soup and some meal. So we do supply certain or something for the athletes, but self-supporting is that they've got to carry their water and they've got to carry their food for the duration between those checkpoints. There's no aid stations like like you see in some of these other races where they come into an aid station, they get their refueling. We refuel from the mountain. There's streams on the mountain. If there's not enough water, we do try and take up water for athletes, but there's sufficient water on the mountain to get them through the legs. And this has happened over the last 28 years. Everyone has got through, even very serious and hot weather conditions. It's not an issue. But then they have to carry their own nutrition that section between the start and Baloch, and then Baloch basically to the finish line. And
Sure.
that's roughly 57 Ks for the first section and 43 Ks for the next section. It's not like they're going through 100-miler without. Everyone's got a nutrition plan, and that's the way to tackle this. Yes.
And you mentioned earlier about the kind of commercial viability. Also, once again, where do you kind of draw that line between keeping it kind of this self-supported, self-navigated kind of run and keeping that kind of spirit of it, but then obviously trying to open it up so that you can make it commercially viable?
Dean, SkyRun is run over private property.
Mm.
So the farmers and the landowners are very gracious to let us traverse their property, first of all. Secondly, it's one of the few proper self-supported mountain runs, I would even say, in the world. Never mind just South Africa. It's never going to be a 2,000-3,000 athlete event, just because of the facilities at the town where the race starts, accommodation, those type of facilities, and at the finish venue, the facilities for athletes. We cannot accommodate that, and we don't want to overcrowd the event and overcrowd the mountain that you don't get that proper wilderness experience. When people are out there, they get a proper wilderness experience, and so that is just the nature of SkyRun. I don't think we want to over commercialize it. If you look at some of the iconic races worldwide, like the Hard Rock 100 and things like that, they're limited fields. Western States, limited fields, because of that exact fact. So it's difficult for people to get to the venues. It's effort from their part, and we don't want a stream of athletes from point A to point B that you don't get that proper wilderness experience. That's not the nature and the ethos of SkyRun. It's a proper wilderness adventure. In actual fact, for 80 to 90% of the athletes, it's a fastback. Because it's fast hiking, running, shuffling where you can, climbing, ducking under fences, sliding, bump slides, and that. So it's a fast back from point A to point B for the majority of the athletes.
You've added shorter distances as well, or has that always been the case? Or when did you introduce that when you came along, and what was kind of
Yes.
the thinking with that?
So the shorter distances was added when we came along. So we've got 3 distances. And they're both portions of the 100K. So the first distance is the 100K, which is the start all the way through to the top of the mountain, finishing in War Trail. And then we've brought on the 65K, which is from the start through Baloch over the wall straight to the finish line. And then we've brought on the 38K, which is the second part of the 100K from Baloch, but you just don't do the wall, and it's a loop. But that's 38K is a night run. So it starts in the afternoon, athletes go through the night, and then they actually hook up with the 100K athletes that are busy doing the full route. So the idea behind that is just a lot of people, because the race is self-supported and self-navigated, are hesitant just to immediately jump into 100K, and which is arguably one of the toughest 100Ks in the country. A lot of people that do the 100-milers relate SkyRun to being almost the same sort of effort and toughness, although it's 50K shorter. So just to introduce people to the terrain, to the area, to the event, we encourage guys that are start off with the 65 or the 38. The 38 is, for me, it's just a lacquer event because it's unusual because it's at night. But if you want to see the real beauty of that area, the 65K is a good start, and then to progress to the 100K, or do this 38 to 65 and 100K. But it's just, you must remember one thing, Dean, that this event is held at altitude. Our average altitude is around 2,700 meters. So a lot of people haven't been that high for extended periods of time. So it's just to give them an introduction to the event. But listen, there isn't an easy distance at the SkyRun. All those distances are hardcore. They're tough.
And what makes them difficult, apart from, the self-navigation, self-supporting? What kind of other challenges do the runners face? You've mentioned the altitude. What other kind of challenges do they
So
face?
altitude is the main thing, weather conditions. So for
Mm,
that second part of the race through the night, it's always cold. It's extremely cold sometimes. It's very rare that we don't get sub-zero temperatures over there. So it's the cold. Being so high, the wind can be a factor. And then I think the most important aspect of this is the trails there are trails, but they're not manicured trails. It's cattle trails, it's game trails, it's sheep trails. So you on a trail, but there could be 5 or 6 trails left and right of you, and so that focus of sort of not just shutting down and running or tracking
mm,
or what, always got to be focused, always got to be concentrating where you're going, where your footing is. Makes it unique. And then the elevation, there's some serious climbs and serious descents on the route. So there are sections where you're undulating, but to get to those sections, there's some proper elevation. Yeah. So I just think the technicality makes it makes it a proper challenge.
And it's obviously in November, which is generally pretty hot in most of South Africa. But you did mention that it gets quite cold at night. Is it cold during the day as well, or is it a warm day and a cold night?
Normally, if the wind stays away, it's the days are good. But sometimes
Mm,
the wind really comes. But listen, yeah, we've had that race in November. Sorry, November, and we've had guys running in almost knee deep snow.
sure.
And I think this year's event, there's definitely going to be snow at
Wow.
Avoca. We did the training camp in September, and there was proper snow, like sections of snow at Avoca. And I see that there's a cold front throughout the country now. At the moment, the guys that do the Wines to Wales had proper snow. Yeah, there's places like Hofmeyer that never see snow, that have had snow the weekend past. So the thing is, that snow stays up there for a while. So I'm sure athletes will be seeing some snow up en route. So the nights get cold, and the wind shear
Mm,
is also an issue. So
yeah.
you can expect 4 seasons in a day on any given SkyRun weekend.
And do you find that most people, come prepared and are properly like informed and briefed, or are they kind of people that just rock up and it's like they have no clue what's going on?
No, no, no. We have kit checks on the route, not at the start or at the finish, because people can easily just dump stuff. We have proper
Mm,
kit checks en route, and I think if you speak to any athlete that's entered for the SkyRun, they've done their research, they've done their homework, they know that you don't skimp on compulsory gear.
mm,
That could be your, if anything does go wrong, that could be your savior. So we're
mm,
very strict on our compulsory gear. We've had top athletes pull out of the race because we enforce them to carry certain kit. And they say,
yeah.
yeah, but they've raced all over the world. But that's not the point. The point is not while you're running. The point is if you lie there with a damaged knee or
Mm,
something, you can't be moved for 8 to 10 hours. You've got to be stationary in those conditions. And that's where your gear really plays the major role.
yeah. And what are the biggest challenges you face as an organizer, on kind of race weekend?
Logistics, because the race is from point A to point B. So we transport athletes' kits up and down. It's quite a long distance on dirt roads that we got to traverse. We got to get all our marshals up into the mountains, and with the serious rains now, that's proper 4x4ing and quad biking and motorbiking. So it's not, or hiking. The guys, the marshals hike for hours and hours to get to the points. So logistics is an issue, and then athlete safety is the main focus for us on race weekend, making
Yeah.
sure everyone is accounted for on that mountain, making sure that we know if something has gone wrong. We don't find out at the end of the race. Between checkpoints, we are continuously monitoring progress. Our sweepers are monitoring progress. So the biggest logistical issue for us is athlete safety. So
Mm,
I'm not en route, and then Mike is at the base, and we're just monitoring progress of athletes, and we monitoring any distress and any issues, sorting that out, and doing that. So that's the the work gets done before race day, but on race day it's basically logistics but mainly athlete safety.
Yeah. And last year's event, how did that go in your mind? Were there kind of any challenges or lessons and things that you're bringing in this year to kind of fix that or enhance that experience? Or is it kind of plug and play from last year? You know the process now.
So the process, a lot of it is plug and play because we're very privileged to have people assisting us that have been doing it for years and years and years. And last year was quite a good year. We didn't really have bad weather. We didn't really have any serious medical emergencies or anything like that. So last year was a very good year, but each year is its own because you don't know what the conditions are going to be like. You don't know what the weather's going to be like. Even one incident is an incident too many for us as race organizers because the buck stops with us. You understand? If someone's very remote and they are in trouble, the buck stops with us and our crew to get them to safety. So that is what makes it a very tense weekend for us as race organization because, like I said, safety is paramount. And there's no just handing the shaft over to someone else. Okay, there's an issue, go and sort it out.
Yeah.
We are actively on hand. We don't have mountain rescue that we can phone and stuff like that. It's us. So that is what makes it quite tense for the weekend itself.
Yeah. And the date of the event, obviously it's now in November. It's, I think, a week before UTCT. Has it always been around this time? And do you find that there's a bit of a conflict there?
That's always been our date. And you know what, Dean? Yeah, for sure. Athletes can't be doing SkyRun and UTCT, but it's two different events. It's two different beasts.
No,
The
of
one is a
course.
community-based event, and the other one and I love both events. You understand? I'm not saying, but it's the beast. The nature of the events are two different. The one is a very community-based event, and the other one is like big city, big flash bang type of event. And you know what? Athletes will choose. We have got a good turnout this year. Athletes will decide. They want to do this, they want to do that. If you look at the calendar, there are so many races every single weekend of the year and good races. So athletes, tend to do things. We're very fortunate with the SkyRun. We've got many, many, many return athletes because of the very simple fact is that no race is ever the same, terrain-wise, condition-wise. So it's always something different. It's always a different challenge. And because that race really does, if they say in Afrikaans, give you a clap, people want to come back and redeem themselves. So we've got a lot of return athletes coming to that event, and also due to the fact that we're so remote, we're so wild that people get really. There's no city lights, there's no cars routine, there's no sirens going off. You're really out there in the wilderness. That makes it a different. But coming back to the date, that's always been our date, and we got to back our date. We got to back our product, which we do. Yeah. We other events came after us and they've changed their dates and chopped and changed, but we've always been the second weekend in November, and that's how it is.
Yeah. Yeah, athletes that I've kind of spoken to always say, I've got to get back to SkyRun, or I've got to, so I think it's definitely, people kind of, as you say, like it's two separate races. And I think people do, very much, as you say, like you've got an excellent product. And speaking of the athletes, I think you released your list, was it yesterday or the day before, your elite list? And
Yes.
I was blown away by that. I don't know if that, look, as I said, I didn't know the race before this year, but like, is this year like a particularly strong year, or is that kind of like a normal where you would have such like a high level of elite participation?
So, Dean, we're very privileged to have a lot of top athletes support us. We've also had some top international athletes support us, and hopefully, again, we will get that going forward. But it's always the top echelon at SkyRun has always been elite. It's always been the top runners. The quantity, the number wise, differs from year to year. This year we got quite a strong, especially in the men's field, we got really, really strong. But also in the ladies' field, we got some strong athletes. But you know what? If you do well at the SkyRun, that's bragging rights for life. When I wanted to say what I wanted to say is that, and it makes me proud when I see it. But you go to a Comrex Expo or you go to a UTC registration expo. I'm telling you now, you're going to spot a lot of oaks wearing their SkyRun shirts or jackets. out there, because it's a bragging right. You've done the SkyRun, you finish it, people know about it, and internationally people know about it, even though there's so many races on the calendar. So I really believe that that the recipe is correct. It is also testimony to the event that so many people make that long journey to the event, because it is a proper journey, from Cape Town or from Joburg to get to the start at Lady Grey and then to get to the finish line. It's a pilgrimage in itself. And just testimony to the fact that these people do the effort to get there shows you that this is an event that people aspire to do. And it scares a lot of people as well.
And with the covering the race, obviously being so remote and stuff, do you kind of have some type of like live tracking, like social media, and obviously that's become quite important now, like for people to kind of follow that online.
So we don't skimp on our photographers and our social media. And you can go follow the race on race day. We've got massive engagement. We've got a very good team that assist us with our social media. We actually bring in people to the race that are actually present on site. We are constantly sending out videos from actual video footage. We've got live tracking through Sports Tracks. We've got world-class photographers, Craig Kaleski. He's in charge of organizing all our photographers. So he brings around a whole team. We got this year, and previous years we got video. We've got guys coming down to do video this year. So we really do. We don't skimp on bringing in the best to cover for our sponsors from Skyway, Sunto, and Dead Lenser, our main sponsors, and then we've got smaller sponsors, Race Food, etc. Just for their bang for their buck, we really get the event out to the world. And you can see the stats of the interactions on race days. It's compares to many races or many of the other top races. We really got a good engagement because everyone wants to see what's going on. Everyone knows about the event, but they want to know what's happening.
Yeah, no, I think that is. It's like you at least, you hear about how crazy it is, but you want to kind of see it firsthand to experience it. And I see you've got, is it both the men and the women's winners from last year back?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's pretty incredible to have that kind of return participation.
Yeah, it is. And you know what the thing is, why I'm saying this is that you never leave SkyRun satisfied. You know that you could always have done better. That race is just so hardcore that it doesn't matter who you are. You always feel like I can do better. I can, and that's what a lot of these top athletes want. They don't want to. They want to just improve. They want to improve their best time. They want to. As I ran this year and I didn't feel good for this whole section, and I'm sure I can go an hour quicker or I can go 40 minutes quicker. So you never leave. It's very, very, very rare that I hear athletes saying yes, they had the perfect run at SkyRun. Because it's such a long run, it's the altitude plays such a big important role. The weather conditions play such an important role. Your nutrition has to be spot on. Temperature control of your body has to be spot on. The terrain underneath, it could be a fire year, or it could be overgrown year. It could be marshy. It could be super dry. So that is why I think we get so many people coming back, because they just want to conquer it. If I look at it in a road running sense, it's a lot like the comrades. People go to 30, 40 comrades because they just want to improve. And I think the SkyRun is one of those iconic events that, it challenges you, and it's you against you. Doesn't matter how much money you got in the bank, what cars you drive, your feet have to get you from point A to point B in the quickest time possible. So it really strips you to the bare minimum.
And the terrain that you're kind of running in and the area, I mean, a lot of us, it's quite hard to understand where it is. So give me a bit of a geography lesson in terms of, where exactly is this place, and is it part of the Drakensberg, so give me a bit of a picture.
So it's part of the Witteberg. It starts in Lady Grey. So Lady Grey is about 50 kilometers from Ellerwell North. Not that says much, but I know a lot of people might have heard of Rhodes, the ski resort at Rhodes. So it's basically like Alps. It's a very untouched mountainous part of the world, and it does join into the berg at the stage. But the Witteberg mountain range is what we're running on, and it's very close. We run on the border of Lesotho for the second part, and it was basically the borderline of the old Ciskei portion there. So Lady Grey's about 50 kilometers from Allowall North, which is that's on the Orange River, and then we run towards Ben McDewey. We just turned before that. That's the highest point in the Eastern Cape, is 3,001 meters, which is well known. And then there's a lot of these, like the Ben 10, those 10 passes, Nordeers Neck Pass, Dean's Neck Pass, and all that areas in that type of area. So that's the area. Very, very nice guest farms, beautiful place to go on a holiday, and untouched. I say it's our equivalent of the Alps type of thing.
Yeah.
Beautiful, green, mountainous, and a lot of the farms, the peaks, get their origin from the Scottish settlers that there. A lot of the like Balloch and Ben McDewey and Snowdon and Avoca, and a lot of the farms. So it's quite an English community. Yeah, and remote. So to get to Balloch, which is our halfway mark, and our big aid station where all the spectators can see, it's like an 80k dirt road ride. You understand?
Sure. You got to be committed to seeing your loved one and that.
Yeah, but the vibe is amazing, and it's not bad roads. You can ride there in a sedan vehicle. We got there's a lot of guys going out there. We got shuttle services in and out into the finish line. But like I did say in the beginning, it's a testimony to the event that there's such a big pilgrimage to the SkyRun for that weekend.
It really does sound incredible. And the local community, you did mention that you run over private land. What is kind of their involvement in the race? And then do you have any kind of locals that run it?
Yeah, we do have a couple of locals that run it. We do. We've got some of our elite athletes or guys that work and live in the area that are coming to run it. So the locals, so all the meals and that are supplied by the local communities. All the guest houses and accommodation is packed up. There's no place for a mouse in the towns. So they assist there in Lady Grey with all that, and then in the War Trail area. It's like farming community, guest houses are all packed, and the local farmers are very involved at the War Trail Country Club. So they supply meals to athletes that finish. The local community is very, very important to us, and like in case of emergencies, we rely heavily on their knowledge, their access points, to perform search and rescues and things like that.
Looking back, I guess on your journey as kind of a runner and kind of organizing the race, have there been like any moments that stand out to you as like, you'll never kind of forget those kind of moments?
I think the biggest standout moment for me is 2013, when we had to call the race off because of the severe weather conditions. There were a couple of miracles that happened that day, and the fact that we got everyone off that mountain safely is a standout moment for me, because like I say, athlete safety is for us the most important, and that was really a touch and go day in the mountains. But every event, for the first 15 years, I suppose, maybe longer, I used to sweep the event because we didn't have the numbers that we do now. So I used to actually physically sweep the whole route and make sure, and just to see the grit and the determination of those people at the back there, just pulling through. And it's something you don't forget. It just tells you something about human nature and the strength to go on. But now I'm en route for safety purposes. So I'm stationed at the high mountain points, and just to experience the unbelievable determination of athletes, number one, but secondly, just to experience the change in their belief. To see people like accomplishing something like that it's always a highlight, it's a standout. You know, it's not something you can buy. You've actually got to go and earn it.
Yeah, it's incredible. What advice would you give someone, I guess it's probably too late if they're doing it this year, but, considering doing it next year, what's the kind of advice you would
So
give
the first
to
thing is
someone?
commit to doing it. Know that it's going to be tough. The second thing is come and do our training camp. So we have a training camp in September where we slowly go as a group through the route. There's no pressure. It's guided basically by athletes. You're not going to get lost. It's just to learn the terrain, especially with the altitude. So try and do our training camp. Costs are super minimal. It's just that we want as many people to experience the mountains before race day and speak to athletes that have done the race. But my main advice would be to, if you really are thinking about doing this seriously, we've got a number of coaches that specifically train athletes for the SkyRun that have done the route, that know the route, and that know what athletes have to train for. Because it's very different training at sea level, sitting in Cape Town training for the SkyRun, if you don't know what to expect, the type of terrain. So these coaches that have been supporting us for many years, Adrian Leroux, Fred Richardson, Pierre Jordan, those type of guys, they physically have done this route numerous times. They know what to expect. I would suggest get someone in your corner just to help you with the training and to know what to expect. Because what a lot of athletes don't understand coming to do the SkyRun, and listen, we do trekking for a lot of the ultras in this country. There's a big misconception when something is called a run, because 80% of the field are fast hiking a lot of the routes. And that's a different beast than just to go run 5 or 10 Ks. You must know how to walk fast. You must know strength training. You're going to be doing lunges up mountains. You're breaking your stride coming down. So strength conditioning for ultras in this country, especially mountain ultras, is important. But people think, oh, no, I can run 30 Ks. Am I right? You're not running 30 Ks. You may be running 5 Ks. You're hiking for 3 Ks. You're climbing up for like a K and a half. Now you're descending like this. So if your body's just conditioned to run, you're going to suffer. We've had many, many, many proper road running, especially in the early days, before mountain running and trail running. I was not a trail, it's mountain running. But before mountain running was so popular in this country, a lot of road runners used to come and do our races. Guys that have run many, many comrades, sub 7 hours, they right at the back. They suffer. They're not used to that type of terrain and that the length of time. They got a set time. It's going to take them so many minutes to run a kilometer. Then they do that in times 4, and then their mind blows because they're not used to it, because of the terrain. And it's not just running conditioning; it's strength training, it's fueling your body with the right foods and that type of thing that plays a massive role.
And do you think we'll see records broken this year?
They've never been broken before, but I hear there are a couple of people that are going for the record. I don't want to jinx anyone, but I hear that's a very prominent athlete that's specifically going to break the record this year in the men's race. I don't want to mention his name, and I just don't want to put any unnecessary pressure on him. But I know for a fact that there is one athlete that specifically his goal is to beat the record.
What is the record? When was it set?
Sorry, I'm not a great stats guy, but it was set by Endon Wachop, 12:08.
No.
And that year we actually had 100,000 rand prize money for the male or female that went under 12 hours. And he missed it with 8 minutes.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't cheering for him, eh? I was cheering against him to make the 12 hours. No, I'm joking. So 12:08 is the record.
Sure, that's quick, especially for those conditions. What is the kind of average across the field in terms of, if you have sort of like a graph, what is the kind of average that people kind of do it in the 100K?
Most of the athletes come in between 24 to 30 hours, like 2/3 of the field. Very few come in under 15 hours, even less between 15 and 24. Most athletes come in between 24 and cutoff.
Have you thought about doing 100 miler?
It will be too brutal. No one will survive it. You understand? We've got the routes, we've plotted it, we've thought about it. But just think of this. The fastest time, normally the average time for a win at the SkyRun for 100 k's is like 13 hours. A lot of the milers that are 60 k's longer, you're looking at 19 hours, 18 hours. It's only like 6 hours longer for 60k. Now, can you imagine having that for longer? People will be out there for a very long time, and just because of the fact that it's so remote. So with 100 miles, you can stop at 8 stations. People can refuel, things like that. At the top of terrain we're working with, it's possible, but logistically for the 20 or 30 or 40 people that might be crazy enough to attempt it, it doesn't make sense. SkyRun is tough enough. It's tough enough as it is.
What other things kind of are you excited about the future of the
Well, listen, Dean, COVID gave us all a knock with our events, with events in general, and just with it. And I must admit, this year's entries are starting to look up, and it looks like we're starting to go back to pre-COVID days, which excites me. Because at the end of the day, it is a business. It is a business. We got to make ends meet. Things aren't getting cheaper. Fuel's not getting cheaper. Expenses aren't getting cheaper. So just to see that bit of an upward curve in the entries is important for me, and that's what makes me excited for the next year. And our sponsors, Kway, Sunto, Ledlenza, our main sponsors. These guys have been with us for many, many years. So it's good to see that they back us and they continue backing us, and they know the value of the event for their products. It's very different when you're doing an event where, for example, your life depends on your navigation device. It's not just an extra tool because the route's marked. Yeah, you got to have proper, reliable navigation. Or your headlights. It's got to get you through early morning start, a full night as well. And that's what you need to see. There's no ambient light from cities and stuff like that. And Kaiwa with the products, they raise their rain gear and their products. So I think that also excites me, the involvement and the loyalty that these guys have had us for so many years.
Well, thank you very much for chatting to me, and hopefully I will be joining you next year, and not in a running way, but definitely want to come and
check it out. You can do some live podcasts there from the finish line. We've got good Wi-Fi thanks to one of our sponsors, Snow Valley.
Oh wow, okay, then I'm there 100%.
Thanks, Dean. Cheers. Bye-bye.